We're going to wait a few minutes. We've got people still logging in, so. And we'll probably get started in a couple of minutes or so. And is that okay with you, Richard? Are we
good for time? That's fine with me.
Okay.
The link that was in the email is still active. It works, right? Because I shared it with my CUNY Central colleagues who was going to join me to talk about the procurement process that's necessary. But okay, if they don't make it, they don't make it.
So the link should be working. I think it was just an issue with people that were assigned as hosts.
Okay, got it.
And I don't believe they were assigned as host. Is that correct, Vivette?
Yeah.
That's correct.
That's correct. I just shared a public link.
Okay. All right. So I think we ought to get started here, and then as people log in, we will admit them. So welcome, everyone. This is the second in our research seminar series. Just to introduce myself, my name is Rose Wesson. I'm Associate Provost for Research here at City College. Today we're having EHOS, Environmental Health and Occupational Safety, give a presentation regarding Safety Stratus. But Richard Belgrave, who is Director of EHOS at City College, will give you more information. And then at the end, we will have time for questions. So just to let everyone know, this presentation is being recorded. If your colleagues are unable to attend, you can find a copy of the recording on the Office of Research website, the CCNY Office of Research website. We'll post that recording soon after this presentation, but hopefully our goal is to have it up there by Monday. So I think that's it. I think that's it in terms of announcements. Richard, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wesson. We'll get started. I'm going to be joined by my colleague from CUNY Central. They're here somewhere. My setup is such where I do not see everyone, so please bear with me. Questions in the chat. I will not be able to see the chat immediately, but we'll answer any questions in the chat later. Okay, let's get started. Okay, now let's see. Good. Safety Stratus. Safety Stratus is a software company that provides environmental health and occupational safety tools. It started as an incubation project with Cornell, I believe at Cornell Environmental Health and Safety. The university recently completed a procurement for the chemical inventory component that will be the focus of this presentation. But the Environmental Health and Safety Office has been using one of their tools called LabClick for the last couple of years. Those of you who are on this group, who are PIs on this group, you would be familiar with LabClick because generates a lot of annoying emails for non-compliance items when they're not completed within a certain period of time. The Safety Stratus chemical inventory is a university-wide implementation. It's provided and maintained through a university-wide contract, handled, managed, and procured by the CUNY Central Office of Environmental Health and Occupational Safety. It replaces BioRAF. BioRAF, you will probably know BioRAF more by the name, by the chemical inventory software, as the chemical inventory software that we have been using for the last couple of years. BioRAF, the BioRAF contract was expired in October of this year, and the Safety Stratus implementation, chemical inventory implementation began immediately, almost immediately. We're basically in the process of implementation. The administrative tools you'll see later are up and running. The principal investigator and the user tools we'll talk about later and provide a timeline. Today, I'm going to be focusing on the chemical inventory tool. And for those of you who, for those PIs on the group, I'll provide a reminder about the lab-click the safety inspection tool. The chemical inventory and reporting tool is going to track chemical inventory. That is extremely important because we need to comply with certain inventory level requirements as required by the fire department permitting. And it also generates Tier 2 and New York City DUP reports. In terms of the reports, we're required as an institution to report to the New York City, New York State, which ultimately goes up to the federal level, a report on all the hazardous materials used or generated at the site on an annual basis. Both of those reports are done in March. Also, not included in the CUNY implementation or the CUNY contract, in that we are a large quantity, in that we are a large quantity generator of hazardous materials, and we have a broad-based license for radioactive materials. We'll also be tracking radioactive materials inventory with the tool. It's going to replace the use and disposal spreadsheets that we have been using. The upside of including the radioactive materials, when radioactive materials enter the college, we check it in. The user will then be able to go on the site, see the use and disposal log, and track the use and disposal electronically. It reduces the need for, as it stands right now, multiple sheets of paper that we've been using. Also, it tracks it cradle to grave. So when you have finished with an item or product and transfer it to waste, it would track that material to the waste container. The current implementation will not be doing the state report that I have to do every year to the New York State Department of Energy on the radioactive materials used or generated. Also, I said I'll talk a little bit towards the end. I have 3 slides towards the end about lab-click or lab inspection tool. The lab inspection tool is a system of notification and escalation. What happens is when the EHS team inspects the lab, the user of the lab immediately gets a notification as to any non-compliant issues in the lab location. Depending on the severity of the non-compliance, there is a small amount of time required to correct, but typically most items will be 1 to 2 weeks. If the item is not corrected within that period, the notification system will escalate it to the chair of the department, and eventually it's escalated to the level where it will ultimately reach the Office of the Associate Provost. The EHS team works hand in hand with PIs and individuals in the lab to avoid situations escalated where it reaches the dean level. It goes to the dean before it then escalates to the associate provost for research. And in at least one school, it is ensured that it does not reach that level. The tool allows us to manage the risk in the lab. There's a component of the tool, the laboratory hazardous assessment, that allows the PI to do a hazard assessment of their work area, of their lab area. That hazard assessment is reviewed by the Office of Environmental Health and Safety, and we will design and develop training as to the hazards identified at the location. These tools collectively really helps and ensure and provide City College with an environment that is safe and free of recognizable hazards. The tool also tracks training records. For example, the Office of Environmental Health and Safety does an awful lot of training on a regular basis. On a monthly basis, we do training on fire safety, laboratory safety, and because we are a large quantity generator, we do hazardous materials training on a monthly basis. The training tracking tool, what it does is automatically notify a person up to 30 to 60 days before the training is going to expire. In the terms of, in the case of the hazardous waste training, because we are a large quantity generator, hazardous waste is an annual requirement. Fire safety is 3 years and lab safety is 3 years. But that tool is designed to give individuals refreshers, reminders that training is coming up. Let's talk about the chemical inventory. The timeline right now, as of Monday, the Office of Environmental Health and Safety had access to the administrative level of the training. And the administrative process, we are going through it, looking for issues that might make it difficult for our PIs. But we have supplied the Safety Stratus with a list of PIs. Over the next 30 to 40 days, probably sometime closer to the 1st of December, Kurt and Ben will confirm that date for me during the chat. We'll confirm the users that we have provided to Safety Stratus will get an automatic email, and that automatic email will allow them to establish an account on the Safety Stratus chemical inventory system, and they will be able to get access to the user level. I've gotten a lot of concern from our users. The existing chemical inventory that was in BioRAF, or ChemTracker as it was called, is being imported. Most of it is already imported. So that when you, a PI, as a user, get access to the system, you will be able to take a look at your inventory, and it will be current as of, I believe, August this year. In preparation for the implementation of this tool, we did a comprehensive inventory of all the very active labs and locations where chemical inventory is stored across the university, updated it, make it available to Safety Stratus, and it was imported. In any event, we did create a backup of the inventory that was ported from BioRAF ChemTracker, and that is available should your inventory be lost. We can always resort to what was there, but it will not be quite as accurate as what we imported. In terms of training, I anticipate that we will have user level training on the system for PIs and individuals in the labs sometime in December. And like I mentioned, the Safety Stratus has been provided with a list of PIs. We, the Environmental Health and Occupational Safety Office, we will be the administrators locally for the instance of the Safety Stratus instance, and we will be updating the graduate students and other newcomers on the system. We'll also be scheduling local in-person training for all users. One of the things we'll also do, we will be doing in-person training at the lab level for users. Now, the next couple of slides, I'm going to give you a brief review of what the chemical inventory system looks like. On log on to the system, you'll be greeted with the City University of New York Chemical Inventory System. City University of New York, as opposed to City College, because like I said, this is a university-wide implementation, a software product that is made available by the City University of New York Office of Environmental Health and Safety, and an instance that we have access to here. For the time being, the Safety Stratus lab click and the other components of the system are not part of the university-wide contract. So at least for the short term, you might have different usernames for the chemical inventory and the lab click. That ultimately will be sorted out down the road. Here's what it looks like for those individuals who will be using radioactive materials. First, when you receive a new product, we will check it in, but you must verify the receipt of that product. So each user is assigned a unique number that will be their radioactive materials permit. They're selected from the system. You'll see the list of material that was delivered for you, and then you can update it accordingly. As you use and consume the material, you will update the record on the system. Again, you gain radioactive materials are tracked based on the amount of radioactivity, the physical form, and a unique code, which you will be familiar with as the RS number that you receive on the product when the Environmental Health and Occupational Safety Office delivers it to your location. That unique inventory of radioactive materials will be tracked by that number. In the terms of chemicals, the inventory screen for chemicals are going to look very much the same. It has not yet been made, a decision has not been made for the EHS or whether or not we will be using barcodes. But nevertheless, every inventory item, every chemical inventory item that goes into the system will have a unique inventory identification number. You ask why? For reporting purposes, we report on hazards. So it allows us to track and record and do automatic calculations into the system as to the total amount, the total quantity of a hazardous material that we might have on site for federal and state reporting. Now, you do notice that even though it is it's a university-wide product, the individual instance will be branded for City College. So the City College logo will be displayed. Let me compare and contrast a little bit the inventory component to what you're familiar with in BioRaf Chem Tracker. One of the drawbacks of the BioRaf Chem Tracker was that we did not have a unique access to the City College level inventory. When we go into the system to do an update of inventory or similar, we were faced with hundreds of locations and PIs across the university. In this particular instance, when you as a user log on to the system, you'll be restricted exclusively to the City College instance, and you will not be distracted by the large number of PIs and grad students from the other colleges and universities within CUNY. Again, another slide, like I said, individuals will have unique license numbers for radioactive materials on the system, and to track their inventory or to find their inventory, they can use their license number and it will bring up a list of all the materials that were delivered to them. A similar situation will occur for chemicals, but for the chemical inventory, you will not be using your unique permit number. You'll be tracking by your room number or the PI's name to whom the chemicals have been delivered to or assigned to. This is what the inventory is going to look like as you search for it. The beauty about this particular implementation is that for each chemical that we have in inventory on site, we will be able to upload a safety data sheet. When you get access to it in December, all the safety data sheets will not be there. The Environmental Health and Occupational Safety Office is going to update those safety data sheets as the system progresses and as the implementation progresses. Having immediate access to this safety data sheet is advantageous because for those of you who are familiar with our lab hazard assessment that we require to be done on a regular basis on an every 2 years, or if there is a major change to the processes in the lab, a lab hazardous assessment needs to be done. The inventory system for that purpose and for others will give you access to the safety data sheets that you can use to assist you in your lab hazard analysis. Here is another view of the inventory. This is what the data entry screen will look like. Fortunately for the PIs, the approach that we're taking here in the Environmental Health and Safety Office, we will handle the inventory. Your role will be to update with any new or incoming stuff. Existing current inventory, we will include in the system. This particular screenshot is for information that, this particular screenshot that you have is for one of our rooms in the Steinman building, the battery lab. What you're seeing is a snapshot of some of the inventory that existed at that location as of August. It was inventory, that room and that location was inventoried, I believe, in July. So you're basically seeing a snapshot of what it would look like. And you notice the tab on the left says chemical inventory and safety data sheets, because we intend to make safety data sheets available for all the items in inventory. It's going to take us a little while. We have probably 1,000 safety data sheets plus on file. We will be scanning the newer ones and then uploading with incoming materials as time progresses. I'll skip that slide. It's a duplicate of one I've had before. Again, another snapshot of what the inventory will look like. Let me proceed really quick and talk about this a little reminder about the Safety Stratus inspection tool. Like I said earlier, it's a system of notification and lab hazard assessment and escalation. Notification and escalation, and a tool that allow you to do your lab hazardous assessments as necessary. It is designed as a tool to aid the PI. It is accessed via the lab click module. When a lab hazardous assessment is completed, it comes immediately to the Environmental Health and Safety Office. We will review it and approve it. We probably will not approve a lab hazardous assessment if it's missing critical information. The critical information would include, have you done a comprehensive analysis of the hazards associated? Or have you provided us with a list of the individuals in the lab? Because with that list, we review it against our training records And if the person is not up to date with training, we make every effort to reach out to that person and remind them that training is necessary. Unfortunately, sometimes we only discover new people during inspections, but we're working on a method where we're informed as to new grad students and new individuals joining the research operations on a timely basis. To do the hazardous assessment, you're going to select the room, the scope, and then you'll select the principal investigator. When the principal investigator is selected, it gives you the opportunity to then go on and do the activity assessment. As you can see from the page, there are a series of tabs across the top of the page where you're going to review and identify all the associated chemical hazards. Also, you will identify the biological hazards. Based on the biological hazards, the area will be designated BSL1 or BSL2, definitely not BSL3 for City College. And on that basis, based on that assessment, EHS will then do a follow-up inspection to make sure that you have appropriate protective equipment. Also, in the analysis, you will identify the PPE. In the analysis, we have a list of suggested PPE based on the hazards that you can select from. And our follow-up will identify any deficiencies. But again, the important and critical thing is to identify the hazards so that we can determine the needs as to training. Across the top, we'll also address radiological hazards, laser hazards, physical hazards. Physical hazards would include, are you using anything with a voltage, any equipment with a voltage above 24 volts, where it might be necessary to, where it would be necessary to look at current protection? Are there any nanoparticle hazards? If that's the case, identified, and then the options allow you to select quantities and associate the particular hazards with personal protective equipment as necessary. About some of the protective gear that you will be able to select from, we considered lab coats as standard required equipment in the lab. So that will be included in the required PPE for the lab hazardous assessment. But let's say, for instance, you're dealing with chemicals that, let's say, that is pyrophoric, for example, then it will be necessary to have gear that is more protective, fire-resistant gear like Nomex suits if you're dealing with any pyrophoric material. The lab hazardous analysis is the tool that enable you to assess those hazards and come up with the necessary protective gear. Information necessary as to protective gear and hazards is located in the tool. That's it from me. Any questions? Kurt, Ben, any comments?
No, I mean, you did a great job covering it. I think December is a realistic date for university-wide implementation to the PI level. We're obviously working out bugs. We've spent the last 2 months getting all the information sent over to the new company from the old company. So we've worked really hard, and we want to make sure it looks great for you guys and continue to make it a useful tool. It's a board-approved, university-funded item, so it's a priority for us, and we want it to be successful. And it's my job that it is successful. So I might show up if you have complaints to try and fix it.
Thank you, Ben. Let me say a little bit about what needs to be inventory. We tend to make a blanket statement that you inventory everything that is a potential hazard in the lab, but we're also realistic and recognize that a lot of time a professor will purchase an item for just in time use. And especially if you're doing research in the area of biochemistry, the quantities that you purchase are very, very small and they're consumed with a very narrow period of time. We're not interested in those items. On the other hand, if you're purchasing an item that is going to be around for an extended period, let's say more than 90 days, and it does pose specific hazards, it should be included in the laboratory assessment and included in the inventory that EHS can review it and make sure that appropriate protective gear is in place. Items that fall under that category, but they're handled especially on the different requirements, is radioactive materials. Radioactive materials will come into the college in quantities that are less than 0.5 ml. But they, depending on the isotope, they could be around for a very long period of time. And there's specific requirements as to tracking. So tracking and record keeping is a lot more intense and diligent when we're dealing with radioactive materials. Are there any questions in the chat? Nope, I don't notice anything.
So Richard, this is Rose. I don't see anything in the chat, but I've had some questions that were sent sort of ahead. They're kind of off topic. I don't know if you want to take them.
I'll take them.
So they're in general about lab inspections.
Yes.
So if faculty are not responsive to some of these issues, what's the long-term ramifications?
Okay. When individuals are not responsive to issues, what we've been doing, I guess because of pandemic, we are not as aggressive as we used to be, but we've had meetings with the dean, and we've had meetings with the assistant vice president, and we tend to escalate it to higher levels. Now, my position has been a number of our researchers tend to apply for grants that require sign off from the EHS office because of an NIH or similar requirement. When I get a grant or similar before me to sign off, I do a review of LabClick to see if there are any outstanding items, and I use that as leverage. I will not sign off until those items are corrected. Mm-hmm. I gotta admit that in the past, I've been caught in the situations where it was a massive grant from the NIH, and it was like, hey, you're gonna do this, but we'll cross that bridge from time to time.
So the rollout will be in December. How will faculty be notified, or what's the method?
The rollout, I've not yet worked out the logistics, but when our existing faculty are activated in the system, and that's the list of PIs that were provided to the company, they will get automatic email from the company asking them to activate their username. I will be informed prior to that rollout occurring. So I will reach out to you as usual to get your list of active faculties, and we'll send out prior notification to those individuals. When the rollout does occur, the EHS team will be available to assist. If necessary, we'll do in-person visits on each lab.
Now, you said, or either Ben said, that the data is being transferred between the two softwares. So faculty will or will not have to enter the data again, or what's?
Faculty will not have to enter the data again for all of those materials that were in place, I'm going to say before August. September, October, I can take another look, but we have not updated those physical inventories that we have done since then. So there'll be few items that came into the college during September and October. It will be necessary to do an update. It doesn't matter if that happens to be the case. I will provide resources to assist. There's a question: should there be an SDS binder in each lab location housing hazardous materials, or one master SDS binder for the building? Okay, that is subject to interpretation, but the regulations require that the safety data sheets must be easily available to the individuals in the lab, in the room location. They must be easily available at source. Now, it is very difficult to have one master binder for the whole building, and each individual each person in an individual lab being able to access that safety data sheet binder at the time that it is needed. So we in the EHS office has taken the position that you at your lab and at your location should have a safety data sheet binder for the items that you currently use and have an inventory at the location. OSHA regulations are still somewhat behind. They're lagging behind in terms of the technology. And the way the regulation is written, it implies that you must have a hard copy. But technology that we have today is very easy to access a safety data sheet from an electronic tool. And it's for that reason that we will be putting a safety data sheet PDF file associated with every item in inventory, so that an individual will be able to access it that way via from the chemical inventory system.
Are there any additional questions? So this is one of the times we have Richard handy to talk about safety. And are there any audits that are on the horizon, Richard?
Right. Say that again, please.
Are there any audits, upcoming audits of labs that are on the horizon?
Yes. Yes, very, very much so. The pandemic has put the CUNY-wide audit program on hiatus, albeit temporary. I know that Ben can chime in here that we have restarted the program, and for colleges like City College, I kind of like the audits to be a surprise.
Okay.
But yes, there is an audit in the future. Let me say this to my audience. Because of changes that have occurred over the last couple of years, where we have moved significant numbers of PIs from the Marshall building to the sub-campus, it has left behind a number of rooms that are no longer being used. The EHS group in the last couple of months have gone through that building, and we have decommissioned, we have removed large quantities of left behind chemicals. This inventory system, when it is fully implemented, would allow us to better manage situations like that. It might cost $10 to have a product delivered to City College, but if it falls under a specific hazardous materials category, it will cost us as much as $100 to dispose of. But implementing this tool and providing the means where individuals can search inventory across the university, I like to see for the future where individuals are sharing material to reduce the cost, not just at the front end, but at the back end.
Okay. So I don't see any other questions, and I don't have any other questions that were sent or asked of me. So thank you, Richard, and thank you, Ben, for taking the time to meet with the City College faculty. Before we end, I do want to say that the next seminar in the research seminar series will be by Candace Baptiste Sexton. She's the director of the Grants and Sponsored Program Office. So on December 8th, again, these seminars are always the second Thursday of the month. On December 8th, she'll talk about how to begin proposal submissions and key points in award management. We will send out reminders again of that December 8th presentation, but we hope to see you there. So if there are no other questions, thank you again, Richard. Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
We will conclude. Have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.